Hey folks, here's my thoughts on Madness, 1917, the latest immersive theater slash escape room project from Doors of Divergence. But before we get into it, I'm going to play for you the 30-second trailer of the experience so you can learn a little bit about the vibe, see what it's like. Here you go.
I don't want to get well. I don't want to get well. For I'm having a wonderful time.
All right, so that was the trailer for Madness, a Doors of Divergence production. So, what did I think of it? I brought 6 friends, so we were 7 people in total celebrating my birthday month. And we got together and we did the experience and we had a really good time. What I loved about the experience was, well, I loved a lot of the experience. I guess maybe I should talk about what I didn't like first, because it's a much shorter list. The experience takes place where you have sort of like a waiting room, let's say, and then you have the actual experience, very similar to, I guess, how you would see it done in maybe like Sleep No More, if you're familiar with that performance. And I think that you get a drink ticket on the ticket, which I think is amazing. I love that you get a little, cheap beer, whatever it is. I still think that's a really smart idea. But the waiting room, I think, though there's some really cool set design, I think still a lot could be done to make that space maybe, let's say, more immersive. My friends commented on the music being a little bit weird in this case. It was a little bit weird last time too. I don't think they've quite figured out what they want to do there. But we have one of the creators behind the bar. He was there last time, and he does a really good job of helping to wrangle everybody into the experience. And just like last time, they told the rules to us in a very immersive and engaging way that I really enjoyed. Um, they gave us then a huge ass wall of text, which is never a good thing to do in a game like this. But he asked me to read it, and so I tried to perform that for my party members. But generally, I don't think that's a good call for this kind of thing. But we made it through, and to their credit, for the majority of the rest of the performance, you're never reading text. They find ways to use video and projection to show you the information in a way that's way more compelling to the audience. But hey, a little something for everyone. And I think that's the name of the game when it comes to Madness. I think they've done a tremendous job of what can only be described as transmedia. I mean, they've incorporated so many different elements. They do a very good job with that. And comparing this performance to the previous show that they've done called Heresy, this performance is uh, you know, resolutely better. I think near every single person who had gone to both that I had spoken to, except for one, said that yes, this experience is far better. And the one who didn't said, "Oh, I think it's just because I did them back to back, so I think maybe the allure of doing it for the first time, this kind of thing, is kind of turned me off of it, and maybe he's getting a little sore to immersive escape rooms, so I can understand that." But everybody else said, "Yeah, this one's way better," and I have to agree with them. The first escape room experience, I think, struggled a little bit with its identity. I'm referring to their first performance, which is called Heresy, which you could still check out, and it is a great performance. I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars out of 5, which it certainly deserves. I think it's very good. However, there were elements that I think didn't come together, I think, to make a greater whole. We could talk about elements that are additive versus multiplicative, which is to say, hey, you add something on and okay, I'll do this also, versus something that, oh, it adds a different level of meaning and it enhances everything else that we've done and that we're going to do. It feels more congealed into a coherent story, into a big time narrative, right? And I think that the elements that didn't quite fit in the last performance were fixed in this performance. To name two specifically, when it comes to, well, I'll name three actually. The first was they had a experience that used physical media in the last one, and I recall my friend, he mentioned, oh, this feels kind of like it was like a county fair kind of carnival game. It didn't really feel like it fit into this environment. I feel in this case they had again a physical media situation, but it was inherently collaborative in a way that the other one I don't think was as much. Both were collaborative, but this one I think did a much better job of tying in the theme of this escape room, and I really appreciated that. Again, I'm speaking a little vaguely here because I don't want to ruin the experience for anybody who hasn't checked it out. This is going to be a no spoiler review, so um, another thing was there was another sort of puzzle in the last one that was very much, it felt almost like if the last one was a carnival game, this one was a bit like an arcade cabinet. It felt a little bit solo. And I suppose you could play it multiplayer, just like I suppose if somebody does the handle and somebody does the buttons, you could multiplayer Tetris. But it really wasn't, I think, a great fit for this inherently collaborative kind of escape room environment. And in this case, I didn't feel like that for any of the puzzles. I felt like they were all very collaborative. And in the last experience, where I think I went with maybe 4 or 5 people, there were times where we were like, okay, there's just not enough here to engage everybody at the same time. I felt like, there's just people were running out of things to do. In this experience, I felt that even with my party of 7, I think the max is 8. I felt like there was something for everybody to do, and everybody felt pretty much engaged. So I really appreciated that. And somewhat unique to this experience, there's a moment where you're going to be perhaps one on one with some of the actors, which I think reminded me of, because this is rare because it's very expensive to do this and it's not common, let's say, in immersive theater. But I saw that there was another. It reminded me a little bit of a Bottom of the Ocean if you've been to that experience. So if you enjoyed that aspect, I think if you're chosen to be the one-on-one participant, which I got to have that one-on-one experience. I really enjoyed that, and I, I I I loved it. I thought it was great. Um, in the previous experience, to name the third thing that they've improved from their last performance, the last performance, there was real actors who engaged with you during the performance, but it did feel very segmented, almost like it was a cutscene, and it didn't feel, I think, as tied into the gameplay, or you might say the ludology, as it did in this experience. In this experience, I felt like the actors were with me almost the whole time. It didn't feel like they were in another room. It felt like they were right there and I could just reach out and touch them, though, of course, that's against the rules, so don't be doing that. But I love that. Constantly, we were like, oh, shoot, um, should I try to reach and grab his gun? Should we try to do something like that? We weren't sure. The line between the player and the actor felt more blurred, even though I think they did a more resolute. Even though I would say like the literal boundaries between us were stronger, right? In at some time, at some case, I'm trying to be vague. Let me just be direct and say like at sometimes there were literal bars between us, right? But even with that in the way, I felt like we were much closer, and I felt like we were able to build those relationships and get a greater sense for the personality. And whereas previously it did feel like that actor was like the term you may be familiar with it called NPC, a non-player character. They felt somewhat auxiliary to the narrative. In this case, they felt ancillary to the narrative. They felt like they were very important to the story. We were right there with them, and I love that. There were so many iconic moments. The final scene in this escape room is one that I don't think you're gonna forget. It was very impactful, and again, it had so many different elements coming together. What can I say? This team knocked it out of the park. If the last one was maybe 4 out of 5 stars or 5 out of 5 stars, this is certainly 5 out of 5 stars. I honestly haven't gone to. I mean, if you can even call it an escape room, I don't know if that's fair to justice to call it that. This is the best escape room I've been to, and I've done a lot of immersive media. Um, I am so excited about what this team's going to do next. But with all that being said, we could talk about this project for much longer, and let's do it. Why not? Because I love talking about this stuff. Let's talk a little bit about there's achievements in this game, which I really enjoyed. Not something I've seen in a lot of escape rooms. I think I've seen it before, but the previous run from Doors of Divergence did this as well, where they give you various rewards, and you can go on their website and plug it in some manner. Again, they're pushing the website. I'm not sure how much value that brings, but maybe there's some players who really enjoy that. It's really freaking cool, though, that you can map out your journey and sort of see your path by using the website. And that reminds me, a bunch of other people had. So I went with my friend group, right? But we had some people there who had not done the previous experience, and we had some people there who had done the previous experience but got a different ending. And wasn't that wonderful that they did a really good job of, I think, making that work in a sort of, hey, man, this is multiple dimensions, time is weird, and we're gonna just we're gonna just make it work. So I did really enjoy that. I think they did a fantastic job of blending those narratives. And I think if you're somebody who's a completionist, there is significant pull to come back to this escape room, and there is more to discover, especially because there's that human element of these paid actors that you can ask different questions. Perhaps there's other stuff you can explore there. I definitely left the escape room with the understanding that there's certain choices I made that I could have chosen otherwise, and that could have perhaps influenced the experience. I know it was the case that in their first escape room, called Heresy, you can make decisions that will result in you going into a different room versus another room. And I think creatively, that was not a good decision. I really think that was a poor decision. Bottom of the Ocean does something similar to this as well, if you're familiar with that escape room or not interactive art experience. Let's say that's not quite an escape room, but yeah, I don't think it's smart. I don't think that's a good decision, and I don't think they did it here. I think that might have been one of the things they sort of learned from that, because though I think there's a compelling replayability, I don't think you should invest your set design into that, because I don't think most players are going to come back. And though I think there is a draw for this replayability, I just don't think it's going to be compelling enough. I don't know. I'm really curious to hear what their numbers are with respect to how many people come back to the experience, but I imagine it's quite low. For me, I was not compelled to go, but I think the price point is competitive enough that um, I'm definitely interested. If I had a friend who said he was going, I might go just for fun, but I don't know. There's so many other escape rooms and experiences I want to try. I find myself really short for time. What else can I talk about to praise for this experience? Again, they give you a drink ticket included in the purchase price for the experience. Gosh, I think I lauded this in my previous review, but I think that's such a smart decision. I think there's tremendous value you get there. And hey, when there's one drink, there might be more. And I think that was the case. I think we had some people in our party who did choose to buy a second drink after they had finished the experience. Very smart, by the way, giving them their first drink before, second drink after. And yes, isn't alcohol delightful for getting players in a whimsical mood? I think even if it's just some sort of box wine or whatever it is, I think they did a great job with that. Smart play for sure. What else can I talk about here? Great set design. I think this one was. I think it's better. I think when you think about the two experiences, you definitely can look at almost every element and you're like, man, they definitely learned from the previous one. And I have to say, when it comes to some of my favorite artists, not in the immersive theater space exclusively, but in any medium, I love to see a creative team evolve from one project to another. That's one of my favorite things, is just to see how people grow and what interests them. Have you ever, for example, asked your favorite musician what his favorite musician is? It's often enlightening to kind of see what their influences are. And also wonderful, though unrelated, I'm just going to go on a tangent here, to is when you have a group of creatives, you see them perhaps break off to pursue other projects. And that's always very interesting because in the case of, let's say, a musical artist, it's always cool to see, oh, what aspect of that iconic sound that you guys made together did you contribute? which of that is part of your DNA that you carry on forward? I guess an illustrative example would be you've got, I forget their names, but it's Davy Reedon and another man, I forget his name, that both came together to do this video game called The Stanley Parable. And then they both broke off, right? And they both did separate games, one of which was, I forget the name, and one of which was The Beginner's Guide, right? Two totally different games. And you look at the game they made together and you look at the game they made separate and you say, huh, okay, maybe this guy's got a little bit of that he was going on. And this guy, he's a little bit more like this, right? I feel that way when I think about my co-creator for some of my projects has been under Black Vein Productions. I've worked very closely with the famous Scott Mulligan. And when I've gone and done my own personal projects, he's gone and done his own personal projects. It's always fun to look at those and reflect on, oh, okay, what elements have you taken from our creative experience and incorporated into your independent work? And then, what elements are uniquely you that, you could see as a through line from the work we've done together to the stuff you're doing now. And you're like, oh gosh, that's totally Scott, or that's totally Matthew Ventures, right? Um, I love that aspect, and part of critiquing art is I think finding an appreciation for that kind of stuff. So, is that all? Is that everything I've got to say about Doors of Divergence? Oh, gee, I think so. Hey, if you've experienced this show or one like it and you'd like to share what that experience was like for you, please let me know in the comment section. I'm always looking for other experiences like this. I just got invited to another one and I did a playtest for one last weekend. So I do love this stuff. So if there's something you know about that's happening in New York City or abroad, I'd love to check it out. Catch you later.